Hi all. So we are into the third lecture of our subject EC 469 optoelectronic devices. We are looking at module number 1. And in this lecture, we are going to look at the optical process. Basically, it means the interaction of photons with electrons and holes, which is inside a semiconductor. Okay. So, matter, which is any material, interacts with radiation. Now, the radiation that I mentioned here is actually a light radiation. So, how does this interaction happens? Basically, it happens in two ways. One is called as absorption, and other is called as emission. Now, emission can again be classified into two, which is spontaneous emission and stimulated emission. We will look in detail of all these categories. In this lecture, we will just see an overview of what are the processes by which the matter gets interacted or matter interacts with radiation. And the important thing that we can note is all these interactions can be explained using the EK diagram, which we have studied in the last class. So, E means energy and K is basically wave vector, which has a relation with momentum. So, we say it is energy momentum diagram. So, K usually we say as propagation constant or wave vector, but you can always write the momentum P as H cross K, where H cross is Planck's constant divided by 2 pi and P is your momentum, specifically momentum of a particle, momentum of an electron or any of the particle. So, there is a one-to-one relation between the wave vector and the momentum. So, we usually say the wave vector as the momentum itself. So, let us look at the first case, which is absorption. So, if you look at a direct semiconductor, which means in an EK diagram, I have the minimum of conduction band and maximum of valence band in the same k value. So at k equal to 0, which is this point, you have minimum of conduction band and maximum of valence band. Now let's say there is an electron is present at energy level E1. If you hit or if you supply a light in terms of a photon with energy h nu, so a light is a quanta of energy, and that quanta of energy is called as photon. Quanta means light will have some discrete energy levels, and each of the discrete energy level is called as a quanta, and that quanta is defined as a photon. So here the energy of photon is Planck's constant h into nu, where nu is your frequency and h is the Planck's constant. So when you hit the direct band gap semiconductor with this one photon of energy h nu, so electron at an energy level E1 will jump into the conduction band to an energy level E2. Okay. As the whole nature obeys the conservation of energy, the electron which absorbed the energy h nu and jumped to the conduction band with energy E2 to an energy level E2 should satisfy the conservation of energy. That means whatever, so before hitting or hitting the system has energy E1, when photon is hit, the total energy is E1 plus h nu. After electron jumping to conduction band, the energy is E2, and that should satisfy with an equality sign. Or I can say E2 minus E1 should be h nu. So the difference in energy levels before the electron was hit by, or before the electron absorbed the photon energy, and the energy after it came into conduction band should satisfy this relation. This is the conservation of energy. The energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. So whatever energy is there from the photon is used by the electron to move to the conduction band at a high energy level. So that difference in that energy is the energy supplied by the photon, which is h nu. This is basically the absorption. Now, using absorption, you can design the photodetectors. So in a photodetector, you will have a photodiode, and when you hit it by some kind of a light, it will produce a current, it's called as photon current, through the load. So load can be a resistor. So the incident photon will generate a current which is IP, and it is transferred to the load or to the circuit where you want to analyze the current. And this photodetector works on the principle of absorption. Okay. Now, if you look at the next scenario, which is emission, it has two parts. One is called as spontaneous emission, and other is stimulated emission. So, in spontaneous emission, spontaneous means without the help of anything else. So, something that you do spontaneously, something you produce without the help of a third person or second person. So, in a spontaneous emission, if you look at, let's consider the same direct band gap semiconductor. So here, instead of an electron jumping from valence band to conduction band, an electron E1, which is in the conduction band, will jump to energy level E2, which is in the valence band, spontaneously. There is no external photon hitting or providing extra energy. It just it just makes a jump or makes a downward transition to a hole in valence band. So the electron in conduction band makes a downward transition to a hole in valence band. So again, since there is a reduction of energy, because E1 is at high energy level, E2 it has low energy level, since there is a reduction of energy, the change in energy should be supplied or should be produced to somewhere else. So where will it go? And it will be dissipated, or it will be produced as a photon with energy h. So because of which it will satisfy the conservation of energy. And the conservation of energy is satisfied when the difference between the energy levels is equal to the energy of the photon produced. This is called as spontaneous emission. And the spontaneous emission is particularly made use in LEDs, where you have a forward biased LED. When you supply a current, the forward current IF, to the LED, the forward biased LED will emit light in different directions. So this is based on the principle of spontaneous emission. And the last part is stimulated emission. Again, let's draw the same band diagram or same EK diagram. And let's assume that there is an electron in the conduction band with energy E1. Now instead of electron jumping directly from E1 to E2, what we do is we will provide a photon of energy h nu. Now because of this photon incidence, the electron will jump from E1 to E2, which is in the conduction valence band, and it will produce another photon of h nu along with the incident photon, because already the electron is at a very high energy level. You are again supplying energy using a photon. So electron will jump from conduction band of high energy level to valence band of low energy level, and while jumping it will give out energy in terms of a new photon along with the incident photon, so that the conservation of energy is maintained. And the important part here is these two photons are coherent. We'll see in detail when we study lasers what are these coherent features, etc. Okay, and as I said just now, the important application of stimulated emission is lasers. So you have a laser diode to which you will supply some forward current, and this will produce coherent photons. So laser diode is an optoelectronic device which works on stimulated emission. So these are different types of optical processes of absorption, emission. In emission you have stimulated emission and spontaneous emission. But all the phenomena of optical process works on two basic conditions or two basic principles, and they are: one, conservation of energy, that we have seen already, and two is the conservation of momentum. Along with energy, the momentum of the system is also conserved. The momentum before the initial stage and after the initial stage is same. If you, just like energy, if you add an extra energy to the system, the final energy will be the sum of already existing energy plus the added energy. Similarly, if you add an extra momentum to the system, then the final energy will be the final momentum will be the initial momentum of the system added with the momentum that you have supplied. So let's look at the conservation of momentum in bit more detail, because it will throw light into many of the optoelectronic features. So let's see an EK diagram. Okay. Now instead of electron jumping vertically straight, let's assume that electron jumps in a slanting way. Okay, if you look at all the previous discussion we had regarding this absorption and emission, we always have the lines in a straight line. So this is straight line, similarly this is straight line. So all the emission and absorption happened in a straight line. So naturally the question will be there, can the electron jump in a slanted line? So what happens if it jumps in a standard line? Okay, so here in this diagram, if it needs to jump in standard line, it should be provided with some kind of an energy. So when it provides with some kind of an energy, the electron which is at E1 energy level will jump to E2 energy level. Now the question is it possible? Is it valid? So you should look at this following thing. The electron at E1 has a momentum K1, and electron at E2 has a momentum K2. So the momentum of electron before transition is K1. The momentum of electron after transition is Q2. So will the light have a momentum? Will the proton have a momentum? It has. So momentum of proton is momentum of photon is, let's say, kph. So according to the conservation of momentum, the momentum when the photon is incident is K1 plus kph. When the electron is jumped to conduction band, it has a momentum which is K2, and these two should be equal. So you should know that for a photon, it has a good amount of energy but very less amount of momentum. A photon carries a large amount of energy but with very less amount of momentum. Okay, so you can, if you compare the momentum of an electron, so basically at E1 state K1 is the momentum of electron, at E2 state K2 is the momentum of electron. If you generalize for an electron Ke minus, that is the momentum of an electron, that is very very high when compared to kph, or momentum of a photon. But I can say in this context our K1 is much greater than kph, which means K1 is approximately equal to K2. Or if I define delta K is equal to K1 minus K2, this is approximately equal to 0. So this means the momentum is conserved. So if you have a photon incident on a semiconductor and the electron at energy level E1 is jumped to energy level E2, then there is a very small change in momentum, or you can approximately say that the momentum is conserved. So when you say K1 minus K2, or K1 is approximately equal to K2, this means in this thing, this K1 and K2 are very near. So this line is approximately like a vertical line. Okay. So I can generalize that in an EK diagram, for a vertical transition, the momentum is conserved, or you can say the vertical transition is an allowed transition. A transition is allowed only if both energy and momentum are conserved. So the question is, then can an oblique or a slanting transition is possible? Is it possible at any point of time that can an oblique, that means slanting transition possible? So that is the question. Okay. So in order to answer that, let us again look at a direct band gap semiconductor in an EK diagram. Okay, and let's, instead of directly using a photon incident, let's see when there is an emission, when there is an electron jumps from high energy level to lower energy level. So this transition, this will be easy to demo. So it will also be same when you consider for protons. Let's say there is an electron at E2 level, jumps to E1 level at valence band, and or let's say this is at jumping from E1 to E2. So for E1 you have a momentum K1, at E2 you have a momentum K2, and we are assuming that K2 is not equal to K1. So when that transition happens, the delta K, which is K2 minus K1 or K1 minus K2, I would write it as K1 minus K2, is not equal to 0 and it is finite. Okay, so the momentum is not conserved. So is this transition possible? It is possible. This is possible. But to make it possible, you need to, along with, so in this scenario, because of transition, there is some kind of light or some kind of an energy is obviously will be dissipated. It will be a photon or some kind of energy. But to make the conservation of momentum applicable, there should be something or some kind of a particle which can compensate the change in momentum. So the light or the photon compensates for change in energy. That is, when you move from E1 to E2, there is change in energy, and that change in energy is given by photon. Similarly, when you move from E1 to E2, there is a change in momentum from K1 to K2. So there should be some other particle which compensates for change in momentum, and that particle is called as phonon. And phonon compensates for change in momentum. Okay, so let's talk about what is the physical significance of this phonon. Okay, as you all know that any semiconductor is like a solid structure which is arranged in a periodic sequence of lattice, like multiple cubes stacked together. So I can say that there is an atom here, another atom here, another atom, another atom. So this is like a 2D model. You can expand it to 3D. Okay, so multiple atoms are arranged, and all the atoms are bounded by some kind of a bond. And because it is in not in 0 Kelvin, the atoms, all the atoms will be vibrating because of the thermal energy. So all the atoms will be in a state of vibration because of thermal energy. So because of thermal energy, all the atoms will be in a state of vibration. So you can say that these atoms are actually connected using some kind of a spring. So there is a spring here which connects all the atoms, and the atoms will continue to vibrate. The vibration is happening because the atoms have some amount of energy because of the temperature. If it was in absolute 0, the atoms will not be vibrating because it doesn't have the energy kT. So kT is a finite value for all these atoms, which makes the atoms vibrate. And apart from that, the vibrations are quantized, means energy for these vibrations are quantized. The energy, all the different atoms have a discrete values of energy for vibration. So for for any atom to vibrate, it should have some amount of energy, and this quanta of lattice vibrations are called phonons. Now, when something vibrates, it will produce heat. So you can say, just like photon is associated with light, a phonon is associated with heat. When a light is incident on a surface, a photon is incident on a surface. Similarly, when heat is transferred, a phonon is transferred. So phonon is something which is associated with heat. Just like a photon for light, electron for a charge, neutron for a mass. Similarly, a heat transfer is associated with phonon, and the phonon is actually the energy or the quanta of energy associated with vibration of atom in the lattice. So this is basically a phonon. Okay. Now, so if you look at the diagram, so let me draw the diagram again. So there is an electron which gets transferred from high energy level to low energy level, and the band gap is Eg, and the different momentum of the electrons are K2 and K1, and the delta K is K1 minus K2. Okay. Now, so when there is a transition till K1 or along the vertical line, it is because of photons. Now, when there is a transition along the horizontal line, that is because of phonons. So this arrows is actually the momentum compensation of delta K by phonons. Okay. Now, the energy of phonons are very less, but it have high momentum. Just like the energy of photons are very high, but it has less momentum. Energy of phonons are very less, but it have high momentum. If you look at physically, phonons are because of heat or because of thermal energy, and thermal energy doesn't give that much of energy to the atoms, because it is increasing on the order of k into t, where k is a very small value. But for proton or photon, you have light energy, which is h nu, and depending on the frequency, it will have a huge value. So energy of photons are very less, but it have high momentum. So if it wants to move across the barrier Eg, so Eg is high compared to energy of a single phonon. So energy of a phonon is of the order of milli electron volt, like energy of phonon is approximately around 50 milli electron volt, and Eg is approximately for silicon around 1.1 electron, which is very high. So when the electron jumps to the valence band, multiple phonons are emitted. Okay. So multiple phonons are emitted when the electron jumps obliquely. Now this type of interactions, where you have a phonon to assist the transition, is called as phonon assisted radiative transition. Okay, so this is called as phonon assisted radiative transition. So we can define two types of transition. First one is called as radiative transitions, which means there is an involvement of emission or absorption of a photon. So it involves emission or absorption of a photon. And next is non-radiative transitions, which that we have seen has both, or we can say it has some photons and phonons associated with it. So the amount of photons in non-radiative transitions are less, and amount of phonons are very high. Okay, and the probability of non-radiative transitions in a direct band gap the probability is less. It is very unlikely, it is it is very less chance that in a direct band gap there is a non-radiative transition. So if you compare this direct band gap scenario where you have an oblique transition, it is similar to saying that you have an indirect band gap semiconductor and the transition is from the bottom of the valence band, bottom of the conduction band to the top of the valence band, that is you in your EK diagram you have the direct band gap, indirect band gap, conduction band and valence band. This is K, okay, and this is your band gap with energy Eg, and if the electron jumps from bottom of this to top of this, this is basically just now what we have said, okay. So an electron, so in direct or indirect band gap, we have seen that when you draw the diagram, it is basically that there are multiple energy levels or energy states in each of the bands. There are like huge number of states. When you connect them, you will have this band gap. So any electron sitting at a higher energy level will always tries to come down and reach at the bottom of the conduction band. So if somebody injects an electron at the top here, it will gradually move down and reach at the bottom. Now when the electron moves from higher energy to lower energy, but the energy difference is less, the energy difference should be emitted somewhere, and this will be emitted as a phonon. So there will be multiple phonon emissions when the electron travels from top of the conduction band to the bottom of the conduction band, and this process is called as thermalization. So thermalization is the process by which the electron gives out energy in the form of phonons and go to a lower energy level. So an electron at a higher position conduction band will always tries to come to the bottom of the conduction band by emitting phonon. So it will dissipate its energy using the phonon. Now once it reaches the bottom, it can travel to valence band in an indirect semiconductor obliquely by emitting phonons again. So it can change its energy by emitting photon, and it can change its momentum by emitting phonon. So it will come down and it will change its momentum. Okay, or it can, if the energy level is very small, then it can emit its energy by phonon. Phonon has small amount of energy which can be emitted, and it can change its momentum by, so this is basically change in momentum, and this is basically change in energy. So we have seen in this lecture that matter interacts with radiation, and we have absorption and emission. Emission has spontaneous and stimulated. We saw that momentum is equivalent to the vector, wave vector momentum is equivalent to wave vector k is equivalent to same momentum. We have absorption, where you absorb light and move to higher energy level in conduction band. Spontaneous emission, where you will move from higher energy level in conduction band to lower energy level by emitting light. Simulated emission, where you have a light incident on the semiconductor having an electron at high energy level, it will move to lower energy level, it will emit light in the form of energy along with the incident light. And all these are based on two principles, which is conservation of energy and conservation of momentum. So we have seen how the conservation of energy works. So in momentum case, the light incident always have a momentum. So the momentum before, if you look at a oblique transition, then the momentum before the transition and after the transition should be same. So before the transition you have a total momentum of the electron and the photon, and after transition there is some momentum. We also saw that the momentum of photon is very small when compared to electron, because of which you can neglect it and the momentum is approximately 0. So is it possible to have a oblique transition? Yes, it is possible. For that we need to compensate the change in momentum using a particle called as phonon. And what is phonon? Phonon is the quanta of lattice vibrations. So energy of the phonons is very less, but it have a high momentum, while energy of a photon is very high but it has a less momentum. So when you compare the energy levels of phonon and the band gap, then if the electron jumps obliquely, then large number of phonons will be emitted. This is called as phonon assisted radiative transition. And so we can classify transitions into two: radiative transitions, where it involves emission of or absorption of a photon, and most likely this will not have any phonons involved. Then there is non-radiative transition, where you have photons plus phonons. So this usually happens in direct band gap. When you come to indirect band gap, you will not have this photons, you will have only the phonons. Okay, and we saw what is thermalization, where if there is an electron at the top of the conduction band, it tries to come down to the bottom, because there are multiple energy levels in this conduction band, and while coming down it will emit a phonon, because the energy difference between two states, any two adjacent state in the conduction band, is very small. So while jumping down it cannot emit a photon because energy is very less, but it will emit a phonon. So multiple emission of phonons will happen at here till it reaches here, and once it jumps from here to here, again there is a change in momentum and change in energy, which will give you the phonons and the other particles. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you for listening.